folks.
Hey, folks.
We're back. Well, it's been a long time. We went to ground after that Leafs loss back in May. Much has changed. We simply couldn't leave you hanging out there, so we're back right here.
You're in the offensive zone, your place for Leafs hockey.
Hey folks, that's Coach. That's KD. I'm the Devo. Welcome to the OZone. We're here to talk all things Leafs. I'm coming to you from the HQ in downtown Toronto. Coach, where the heck are you?
I'm in the OZone International headquarters, fellas. Moved over here to London. A little late, but I tell you what. I wear my Leaf gear around. I bump into Leaf fans all the time. We're everywhere, and we're depressed.
Yeah. Yeah, KD, how's the east side?
Hey, Coach, anything to declare? Yeah, I'm east side again. It's hotter than a pig on a spit out here off the Danforth, and yeah, more heat to come.
Yeah. All right, folks, before we get started, you know the drill. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, you'll never miss any content. Like, share the video. It helps us, it helps you, it helps everyone. It broadens the audience. And leave a comment. That's the most important thing. It helps us get better. Okay, so much has happened. I don't even know where to start with these Leafs. They lost. Dubas gone. That was crazy. The draft. Brought in a new GM. New guys in, old guys out. We're going to break it down. Not sure where to start. Coach, let's start with you. What about the guys that we added? Let's just talk about that for now. What do you think is the most important signing so far?
The most important. Well, that's a layup. How about I can say the new GM's second day of free agency was much better than his first day. Maybe he was setting the bar low, and then he really exceeded it afterwards. I like what they've done up front. But before we go and pat ourselves in the back and say we're all great, the John Klingberg signing is awful. It's Matt Murray-esque in its awfulness. It's horrible. It's awful. Leaf Nation. I mean, I wouldn't count us as militant as a lot of Leaf Nation when it came to Justin Hall. Say what you will about Justin Hall. Let's face it. He struggled at times. Sure. I don't think that's a stretch. John Klingberg is going to make Justin Hall look like Pronger defensively, and not Sean Pronger. Klingberg is awful, and he's soft. He's 10-ply. So that was not a great start. As hard as the guy they did sign on the first day, Ryan Reeves, is, we'll see how much he plays. Klingberg's the opposite. He had a bad year in Anaheim, but last year, and really the worst defenseman 5-on-5 in the league last year, bad. But I'm telling you, when I was in Dallas, he was in Dallas for a number of years. It wasn't a fluke. He's not very good. So I wanted to get the negativity out of the way because we're Leaf fans. There's always got to be some, right?
I am with you on that one, Coach, because I think if all things being equal, if we actually had to ask about Klingberg 4 months ago when he wasn't playing in Toronto, we would have probably all settled on agreeing he's probably the most overrated player because everyone knows who he is for some reason, and he's not good. He's not great.
You just don't need it. You don't need that guy. You don't need an offense guy. That's Riley. We need a guy who can defend. Think about who we moved out. Moved out Hall. Say what you will about him. Struggled. But he could kill penalties. And Luke Shen was great too. Now, you can't give Luke Shen that contract. That's a little much. But you need to bring a big body in that can defend to replace those guys. It's not there. So, anyway, that's that. KD, I think things are a little more optimistic on your side of the bench, right? On the forward side. Made some really good pickups there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, well, I'm sure we'll litigate the defense a lot, and there's some worries there. But one of my big things last year was, are they going to be scoring the right types of goals in the playoffs? Are they scoring enough in the regular season? The KDI awards, and you brought in two, maybe even three guys if Reeves can get to the front of the net, but certainly the other two guys will play on the top lines. They like going to the net. They love it. They'll score greasy goals. They love hanging around out there, and that's the type of stuff. That's the jam you need in the playoffs. And I'm encouraged by it because I think they've complemented the top six for the first time, rather than finding guys who can maybe fit up there for cheap. They finally found guys who are legitimate complements up there. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out.
Agreed. The Bertuzzi signing. I mean, we talked about him quite a lot as a potential target at the trade deadline. Obviously, you've heard me talk about Domi quite a lot. Both of you.
Yeah, you've wanted him for a while, haven't you, Devo? Yeah. You have.
I admit this. I see the world through Leaf colored glasses, so often I might overrate the players that kill the Leafs, and Domi is one of them. He's always played his hardest when he plays the Leafs. Hopefully, when he plays for the Leafs, he plays equally hard. All right, so
hey, Mike. One more thing though on those two signings, especially.
Yep.
So really good contracts, like good for the team. Of course, you would like to get some term out of those guys. But there's so much uncertainty about the Leafs cap situation 12 months from now that to get them on one-year deals is good for the Leafs, and it's good for the players too. Cap's going to go up, so those guys are both on a bet-on-myself contract. That's great. They're motivated to play. The only real concern I think I have with either of those guys is they've had injury problems, especially Bertuzzi. If they could stay healthy, they're going to play with good players. They're going to have great years. It's good for both of us. And when is the last time we have said that we've signed a team-friendly contract? Not with the last guy. I mean, he was sitting there in Pittsburgh like Bertuzzi for that's not. He didn't get nearly enough. I would have given him way more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even with Devo, like our big contention with the Domi, we argued many times, and Devo loves the player. I didn't like the $6 million.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Domi at 3. I think
100%.
Now the numbers work for me both, and I'm happy at 3 on my team for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, agreed, and it'll be interesting to see how they play Domi, where he fits in, and because I think he's probably gonna move around between center and left wing. We'll see how that works out, but that's not so bad to have a guy that can move around a little bit.
Well, with more talent than Alex Kerfoot, he could do that too, but he's all right with the exception of penalty killing. Domi's not a great defensive player, but I think where he plays depends on Matthew Nyes. Really small sample size, but super encouraging, right?
Yeah.
So if he can put something together where he proves he's a top 6 guy more, consistently in the season, then Domi can play third center. That's great because it bumps Camp down,
yes.
Who was the most notable free agent signing. I think we overpaid on that guy a little bit. But but that's great if Domi can. Otherwise, Domi's in the top 6, and I don't think he plays center. Tavares, that's a weak defensive second line. Right. But it's going to score. He's much more offensively inclined than Kerfoot or even Yarncroc that used to fill that role.
Well, I think, Coach, too, the reason why Camp got his money is they were a little desperate for centers. The closet got bare pretty fast. So
it's a little thin. Yeah.
So I think they had to do what they had to do and then move on. And it's nice to have the versatility with Domi. So we'll see.
Fellas, last year our left wing situation, Bunting, Yarncroc, who's a right winger, was playing left wing. if Domi plays left wing and Bertuzzi, that's way better.
Way better.
Fantastic.
Okay, so that leads to my next question then. As of today, as of this moment, is this team? I'll give you two comparables. Is this team better than the team that started the season last year? Yes or no? I'll start with you, Coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason being that there's top 6 players. There's 6 top 6 players in the top 6.
Yeah.
Goaltending should be the same. Defense, I don't think is quite as good, but yeah, I think it's better than the way they started the season.
Okay, so Katie, that brings me to my next question. Are they better than the team that lost to Florida today, right now, just as they are on paper? No.
I don't think so. I think they're not going to be nearly as good a penalty killing team because they lost 2/3 of the guys who kill penalties and who kill penalties well. They're not as good defensively. There are certainly holes there, but that's a trade away or a signing mid-year. So I would say they're not as good. But there's the potential. I think there's the potential for the right guy to go, and I'm sure we'll talk about that right guy to go to bring in maybe the right guy on the decor, and I think you'll be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I mean, Chari is one thing, but O'Reilly is a star, and not just a star. He's a winning star. We have stars, but not winning stars.
I think one of the problems they had last year was trying to fill in Muzzin's spot. And, you had guys that on the cheap who did a pretty good job. Justin Hall was, if you look at his stats, he was a fairly effective player for the amount you paid for him. You'd say Luke Shen, especially in the playoffs, exceeded all, did well. However, all 3 of those guys are gone. So now you have guys that do we really trust? I mean, we haven't really trusted Liljegren 3 years in a row. And are we going to trust them? Then there's Timmins. Then there's way more question marks back there. That's where my concern will be.
Yeah.
We need those big defenders. We need guys who actually just play defense, who can move bodies
even
and
use
stop
the bigger
it
names.
cycling.
Even use the bigger names. Riley was fantastic in the playoffs, but he did not have a particularly strong season last year.
No, fair.
And then the opposite was true with Gio. Gio was great for 75 games, and he was unplayable. And I think because of the former, the latter happened. Played the crap out of that guy all year. Can't do it. So think about this, though. At the beginning of last year, he rock solid. We were fired up. He's best contract in the league. He's going to give you third pair minutes. He's the best third pair guy in the league. Great. Yep. Going into this year, at best, we got to limit his minutes. Maybe he's the 7 guy. But there's a ton of third pair guys on the roster right now.
Yeah, and McCabe, I think, falls into that as well. I like part of his game. He's got a little bit of nasty to him. But he is prone to bad pinches. He's prone to mistakes in the middle of the ice. And you want your nasty guys on the back end to be big. And that's the problem when you look down the Leafs bench, is that as you get down to the defensive side, they get smaller. And that's when your defensive core is bringing your average down, it's not your average size down. It's not ideal. And the Leafs have suffered for this. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, in a copycat league,
for a long time.
Vegas' defense was massive. Hey, McCabe, so bad pinches, bad neutral zone decisions. Was he watching some Erasmus Sandin's games?
So here's a couple of other questions. So we know where we are pretty much with the forward group, and there's some depth pieces we won't bother talking about that can get moved around in there. We seem to have 7 guys, maybe 8 guys, depending on if there's some folks coming up from the minors. So we got the deep core more or less scoped out. Something's got to happen in net. I think pretty much everyone is assuming something is going to happen. I'm going to start with you, Coach. What's going to happen either imminently or before camp starts?
Yeah. Well, look, the easiest thing, so Ilya Samsonov filed for arbitration, so he's going to get somewhere 2.9 to 3.5. If he got 3, that's probably fair for both. and a 1-year deal would be fine. That's easy. I think Joseph Wall has earned that second spot.
Yep.
Even if he hasn't, you take 3 goalies to camp, you can't risk sending him down.
No.
Right? Flag. It's studio's under repair. But you can't risk sending him down because he won't clear waivers. So the other side of the coin here is something's got to be done with Matt Murray, right? I just don't see how he's on your roster to start the year. So that's the easy part. Well, it's not easy to move that contract, but I think Samsonov and Wall, it's a good combination. Or are you looking at a big trade, right? So we're going to talk about the D, but could you move Connor Hellebuck in here or John Gibson in here? And then you don't have to worry about Samsonov and his 3. Both those guys are bigger tickets. But is that part of something bigger? I will say this, Jim Treliving, not afraid to make a big deal. He got lots of value for getting rid of Matthew Tkachuk, who's going to leave anyway. So maybe that's in the works.
Well, Connor Hellebuck is a very interesting name that you brought up there. He is pretty much demanded a trade out. We know what his value is. To fit him in, you would still need to move Murray, and probably that trade piece is up front. So you're looking at Nylander, I think, right? Some sort of package.
Yeah, but Devo, you're the money guy, right? Murray's got to go anyway, even just to keep the roster they have right now. No. Like they got to get rid of that ticket.
These are 2 completely different things.
Yeah.
So it's either you're moving out Murray, and you're probably minoring a couple of extra guys to start the year in order to sign Samsonov at, call it 3.3. Okay, and that's I think the math works on that. It's tight, but we're Leaf fans. We've done it every year. We're starting the season thin in order to make it all work. Or
if you trade for Hellebuck, Samsonov's going to. He's not going to want to hang around.
You don't sign him, right? You let him go.
He's an RFA, so you don't sign him.
So with that in mind, you do that trade before you have to sign him.
Yeah.
Because if you sign him, then
potentially you sign him. You sign a trade, and then Winnipeg has their goalie. Maybe Winnipeg has both goalies.
Yeah. Take Murray, please.
You have Samsonov for cheap. Here, you got to take this one now.
Yeah, but I mean, it'd have to be more than those. So Samsonov for Hellebuck isn't fair. It's less fair if they take Murray too. Like you got to sweeten it even more to take that contract.
Yeah, it's a further divide. I mean, I don't.
Oh, and they just signed Brossois, right? That he's pretty good.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the goal, I don't know. Do you guys think it's worth looking at a bigger name goalie, like a guy who's making 6 or more? You got to move a piece out, like a legitimate roster piece. Is it worth doing that? We're all in, right? And Ilya is my man. Mm-hmm. I think it's fair to expect he won't be as good as he was last year. He exceeded all expectations. And KD, I won't say he was great. He was very, very good last year.
Yeah, he was good.
He was very good. The thing that impressed me most about his year last year is he was kind of the 1B guy to start the season, more or less.
Yeah.
Even though the guy he was playing with was kind of banged up to start the season. But when Murray actually had a couple of decent games, and it did happen, Samsonov came back with shutouts. Almost every single good game that Murray had when Samsonov was coming off the bench, he came in with a shutout. He did it like 3 times. And those were Murray's best games of the season. Were always in front of. So Samsonov is a gamer. Like he's got something to. It's not just luck. I think we saw enough of it last year. He is a solid, real goalie. I'm concerned whether he's a guy that can take a full load. I'm concerned that he could stay healthy, but I guess you're always concerned when you have a goalie that you depend on, right? When they go down, it's usually trouble.
Yeah, and isn't it funny that? Yeah, isn't it funny though, because of the position, that we look at Matthew Nyes with unbridled optimism. Unbelievable start. He gets thrown in. He's got hardly any NHL experience. He gets thrown in, and he does well. And so he should have a huge year, right? Okay. Joe Wall, same thing. Gets thrown in, notably, instead of Murray. He gets thrown in, does great. He played, at least he's probably better than Samsonov in that stretch. And we're thinking, ooh, that's risky to count on that guy for a whole year as your 1B, right? Because of the position. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. It's sky's the limit. Wall, it's, we're really rolling the dice.
Yeah,
it's true. It's very true.
Absolutely true. It is a tough position. So essentially, if we're going to say there's a move to be made, or if we think that the GM is deciding I'm not done yet, that's the move.
I don't think so, but that's a swing for the fences move. Maybe. I don't know if I put it past him. I don't know.
We're all in agreement, though. We're all in agreement that there is one move that will and must happen, and that is going to be package up some futures, slap them on Murray's back, and send him out the door. And hope to goodness
Winnipeg are in a bad spot. I mean, there are 5 guys in the league that you bank on as your starting 1A goalie that's going to play a lot. Bunch of them are Russian, and there's one American, right? And he's one of them. So, I mean, for Winnipeg, it's got to be a terrible feeling because you're letting go of franchise goalie. And again, we could probably count them on both fingers over the last decade how many there've been. So it's if you can swing it and you could get him on your team, it could be a huge difference.
Yeah. I think was the last time the Leafs had a goalie of Hellebuck's like
Curtis Joseph, probably Curtis Joseph,
Harry Stotchuk.
Belfour had some pretty good years with Toronto, right? I think Belfour.
Yeah. Belfour was solid too. Yeah, he was good.
He had some pretty good years. Leafs went deep against Philly that one year. I don't
think it was Yuri Sirha. So Mike, to answer your question though about trades, okay? So number one, Murray's got to move by hook or by crook. Either you buy him out, or you got to sweeten it, or he's got to move. Number one,
the buyout doesn't work. I think goalies, also for the viewers, you got to know the buyout doesn't work. We got too much money committed to that, and
it's true
from now, and we got to re-sign Matthews. So
it would suck. It would suck. Number three, I think you take a swing for a goalie. Number two, he's going to make a trade or trades to improve the defense because of the stuff we've just talked about, and he's on record multiple times by saying, I like length. I like long defensemen. He likes size back there, and that is music to this group's ears.
Yeah, we like that. We like that. That's the best thing he said. Unfortunately, he hasn't lived by that mantra, but how do you move? Okay. All right, and we're almost out of time here, folks, but how do you get in length on the back end? You got to move something out. Like, we pretty much, it's a shell game to get the math work to just put this team on the ice today, and that assumes trading futures and Murray out of town. That just gets this team on the ice. So what do you got to move something decent, and you can't. I'm not going to be like some Twitter guy saying, well, Robertson for someone amazing, some all-star. It's just not. That's not a thing, right? Everyone's cheering for Robertson. We hope he comes back from injury and hope he stays healthy for 60 games in a season and puts up some nice offensive numbers. But there's no GM in the world at this point is looking at that guy as a prospect that's going to help your franchise long term. They're not going to bank on it. So how do you get a legitimate top 4 defenseman in Toronto without moving out one of your core 4? Is it possible?
You can't. Unless it's Riley. Unless it's the core 5. The only way, but it's a dangerous move moving one D out for another D. I don't think it happens. I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I would put it in 90%. We're looking at Nylander moving, 10%. We'll call it 85% Nylander going, 10% Marner, 5% they can't sort out Matthews, and so they get scared and dump him. But I think those are your odds.
Yeah. I Coach doesn't like that, obviously. Well, listen,
he moved
folks,
all the way to England, so I.
There's still a lot of questions out there. A lot of chips have fallen, but there's still a lot of questions. Back end's got to solidify, not just the goal, but even on the defense. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks, but we're going to have you covered right here on the OZone.
Good to be back.